the throne of Parthia, or Persia, was empty. So what were the Parthian Persian kingmakers doing at Jesus' birth, looking at Jesus as a potential monarch? So we have a problem here. What I was looking for was a monarch, a prince, who was of the Egyptian royal line, of the Persian royal line, but somehow exiled in Judea in circumstances of semi-poverty. So is it possible, could we find a royal family that was exiled into Judea at this time? Well, funnily enough, there was. The king and queen of Persia were exiled to Syria-Judea, just to the east of the River Jordan, in AD 4. So here we have a royal family out of Persia, exiled to Judea, living in a state of poverty in Syria-Judea. So this was rather interesting, and I mean, this is real history. People know about this, but of course it's very easy for historians to sideline sections of history because it's not the sort of part of history you will actually come across if you go through history at school, or even if you do history at university. It's not a part of history you're likely to know about. It's a forgotten history. And it seems likely to me, the reasons are complex, and I don't want to go into all of the circumstances, but it seems to me that this lady, the queen that was exiled, was the daughter of Cleopatra VII, the lost daughter of Cleopatra VII. Now we know Cleopatra had several children, and this lady was given to the Persian king, Phraates IV, as a diplomatic gift. Now, it says that in the text that she was a prostitute, but that is not the sort of person you give as a diplomatic gift. This was Augustus Caesar of Rome. He was having a great deal of problems with Persia. Persia was the biggest kingdom on his eastern border. He'd had a lot of problems. They'd lost 2 major battles against the Persians. He wanted to give a spectacular gift to Phraates to end the hostilities. And he gives Phraates a prostitute? I don't think so. So who was this lady that he gave? And for many reasons, that she just has to be the lost daughter of Cleopatra VII. Here we're looking for a prince who made his mark in this era, in this area, in fact in the wider region. And this is the sort of prince that could have done exactly that. He would have been descended from the royal line of Egypt, from Julius Caesar, from the royal line of Persia, and also from the royal line of North Africa, Mauritania. So here was a prince that could have...
And this you have this lineage in your book.
Yes,
for people
indeed.
to be able to...
It's a complex lineage, so it's difficult to go through it.
And you would have to say the evidence is there. It's beyond circumstantial evidence in your mind, or would you still say it is circumstantial?
Some is circumstantial because there are elements that are missing.
Okay.
And so we can only look at the links that link them together, because there is no definitive text that says, yes, this woman was the daughter of Cleopatra.
Okay.
However, we do know that Cleopatra was pregnant when she fled from Rome. What we don't have is a text that says where this child went to. And then we have this strange woman who pops up 20 years later. And so, yes, some of the links are circumstantial, but when you look at this lady, what she looks like, who she was, what her name was, all of those link straight back into the line of Cleopatra and to Egypt. Especially her contentious marriage, which even Jesus talks about, and this is one of the links.
Can you talk about this a bit?
Yes, we're probably jumping ahead of ourselves a little bit here, but one of the reasons why I am convinced that this has to do with Jesus is because he talks of this contentious marriage. It's one of his parables that he talks about. And this was such a strange, unusual event that it would seem inconceivable that he would mention this strange marriage if it was not something to do with his family. And here we come to the reason why he could not be included in the biblical text. Because, okay, we have this prince, very influential, very well connected. So why don't they admit that? Why can't they say, this is our hero, big prince? Well, there's two main reasons. Firstly, it wasn't his church, as we said before in our previous interview.
Right.
Christianity was the church of Saul, nothing to do with the church of Jesus. Saul wanted this tale about a lowly carpenter, etc., which didn't really fit in with the story of Jesus being a prince. But perhaps more importantly, he also wanted to be head of the church. And after him, obviously, St. Peter. Now, how could he be the head of the church and all the popes later on be the head of the church if we had a royal bloodline that was still living? And surely they would, of course, have been the head of the church. So, you know, the popes, of course, of the Catholic Church are effectively priest-kings. They are kings of the church. But how can they be a priest-king of the church if we have a real bloodline prince still living in that era?
So he had to essentially be knocked off of his throne to a lower status.
All Saul wanted was an icon. So he had this picture he could hold up, and he had this icon. The last thing he wanted was this real prince with real sons and real daughters still living somewhere in the Far East. He couldn't be head of the church if this person was still there. And so they had to be sidelined, they had to be taken out of the picture. So that's one of the reasons why this prince was taken out, effectively. The other reason is that the circumstances of this royal family's life did not fit in again with the story he was trying to preach. Saul's story is about an ideal family, the Waltons of the 1st century AD. Unfortunately, the reign of Theomusa Aurania was not quite so idyllic. Theomusa herself killed her husband, and she then married her son. And so, and of course, this is one of the reasons I say that she was of the Egyptian royal line, because this was normal practice, of course, for the Egyptian royal line.
Right, I mean, when people hear this, we immediately, start freaking out by today's standards, but in truth, that was common in bloodlines.
Yes, and those standards that you're saying, we have this reaction to
incest.
Incest, yes, was created by Saul, of course, in a later era. So, going back into Egypt, especially during the Ptolemaic royal line, the most important thing for the royal family, and of course incest wouldn't have been a normal thing for all Egyptians, of course. We're talking about the royal family here.